everyone, it's Melanie again from She's Stitchin', and this is going to be the next step in our cowl, or just a new stitch for you to learn if you're just learning new stitches and not doing the crochet along with us. This stitch I've adapted from the V Stitch Waffle, and sometimes it's also called the United Stitch, and it's a really beautiful stitch. I've enjoyed making it a lot. As you can see, it kind of has the V stitch like we did earlier, which a lot of you are probably familiar with, and it also has some of the characteristics of a waffle stitch. So you can see it has like a great texture. One thing that I really like about this stitch is, unlike the regular waffle stitch, this is also double-sided, so it has a great, beautiful texture from both sides. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, before we get started, I just wanted to make sure I share that I'm using the Karen 1 pound. It's a medium 4, and it suggests a size 5 hook, but in order to maintain the gauge for the rest of our squares, I'm using my 4.5, but you don't need to do that unless you're trying to match up the squares with us. This pattern would work with any type of yarn and hook. There's no specifications on that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with a chain of 33, and then go ahead and put your hook through the 5th stitch from your hook. So I already went ahead and did that, and I like to crochet into the back bump of my chain in order to keep my work from twisting. Originally I was taught to go through the V's here, but I find that my work turns out a lot better if I go on that back bump. So let's go ahead and get started. So we go into that 5th hook, or the 5th bump from the hook, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets. And then you're going to chain 1 and go into the next bump and chain 2 double crochets. Okay, so this is almost like we're creating a double V here, for those of you that are familiar with that stitch. And then we're going to skip 1 bump and put just a single DC here. Oops. Okay, so we skipped 1, put a double C or a double crochet in. Then we're going to skip another bump, and we're going to put 2 double crochet in here. Then we're going to chain 1, that'll be the center of our V's on our next row. One and 2. And we're going to do our DC. This is kind of just to separate the stitches, and I put the DC in there, unlike some other patterns that I saw, in order to keep the swatch from being too holy. I don't really like it when they're holy. So we put this, put this DC here. Okay. And then we're going to skip 1 and go back and put the 2 DC in. So we're going to copy this pattern all the way across. 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC again. Sorry, my yarn's getting stuck on something. So 2 DCs, chain 1, 2 DC, and skip 1 for regular DC. Skip 1 and go back to the beginning of the pattern with the 2 DC. So we're going to repeat that all the way across, and we should end up with I believe it's 5 repetitions. Now I forgot. So we're going to repeat that all the way across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we're going to get that first row. All right. So there's 2 DC, go into the next one. Oh, I forgot to chain 1 in the middle there. Sorry guys. Alright, so we chain 1, then do 2 DCs. I'm going to skip 1 space and put a regular DC on its own. Skip 1 space and go to 2 DC. Okay, chain 1, so again we're just repeating that pattern. You can find the written pattern on my Facebook page, She's Stitchin', and I'll put a link in the comments. And you can also find it, oh, I put that in the wrong spot there. You can also find the written pattern in our Facebook group, Just Another Crochet Group, where we're doing a cowl all together. So if you'd like to join us with the cowl, we're just using a size 4 yarn, and our squares are all just about 30 stitches across. This one will end up being 31, but we can fix that when we put our border on. So if you'd like to join the cowl with us, it's lots of fun to see everyone's results to the same patterns and to see their color choices, and when we get to the point of assembly, to see how everybody assembles everything differently. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, and then our DC in the last stitch. Okay, so there we have our first row. And so we have that repetition. So this will count as our first DC, and then we have the 2 DC, chain 1, 2 DC, skip, DC, skip. And once we repeat that pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're setting ourselves up to have 6 of the steps from before. Okay, so let's switch and do our row 2. Let's go ahead and start off with row 2. The first stitch here will be the chainless standing double crochet. I will link in the description for you guys the link to the Moogly Blog video tutorial of this, because I find this is kind of a confusing stitch and she does an amazing job explaining it. So I'll show it to you once, and if you're having trouble, go ahead and rewind or go ahead and visit her blog. So the first thing you're going to do is maintain pressure here with your pointer finger, or however, depending on how you hold your hook. Then we're going to loop around once so that we're getting those yarn to stay there. And then we're going to go into where we would normally put our crochet, yarn over once and pull through. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through the other 2. So as you can see, that ends up looking very similar to what a normal double crochet would look like. Okay, let's go ahead and head back into our pattern. If you're not comfortable doing the chainless standing double crochet, you can just do a chain 3 or whatever turning stitch you're used to doing. So you would either do this or the chain 3. Next we're gonna do a front post double crochet around this third one from the end, which is also, you can see here is where we have the chain in our stitch before. So this is going to be the center of the V. So we're going to put our yarn, let me show you that again, all the way around the base of the stitch, or the post. And then we're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, just like a normal double crochet. And what that does is it starts to push that stitch forward, and that's how we're going to get that beautiful texture. So you do that front post double crochet, then you do a double crochet in the space that's created by that chain stitch. So we do the double crochet, and then we're going to do another chain and a double crochet. So that is creating what we will call in this pattern a V stitch. So what we have is a double crochet, a chain, and a double crochet, and we will be repeating that a lot throughout this pattern, so we can call that a double V stitch. And then we're going to do, to finish off our pattern here, we're going to do another front post double crochet just like the last one. So we're going to do one here. We go around this stitch, yarn over, pull through, finish off your double crochet. So that's going to start to give us that beautiful V texture. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a double crochet on top of our single double crochet that was from the row below. So you can see here we have the missed chains, and we're just going to put our double crochet right on top of that one. So that is the repetition that we will be setting up for the rest of this entire pattern, actually. So row 2 will complete in this way, and all the way through row 14 or 15, I can't remember right now, will be in the same way. So let's go ahead and repeat that pattern. We don't chain in between or anything here. We want to keep that tight to maintain the integrity. There we go. So we're going to do a front post around there. Sorry, I didn't show you that smoother. So we find that skip chain, which is the center of the V, the double V here. So we're going to do a double crochet around that post there. All right. You kind of just ignore those outer V's in the pattern here. So we do the front post double crochet, then we're going to do our V stitch, which is the double crochet, chain, double crochet. Okay, and then we're going to go back to that front post DC from the row below to start and pop that V out. Okay, and then the next step is to find that single DC that sits alone on the row below and put a DC into there. Okay, let's start a repetition over again. So we have that front post DC that we put around that stitch. Then we have our V stitch, which is the double crochet, chain, double crochet. Oh, did I miss the chain? Yes, I did miss the chain. Sorry. So double crochet, chain, double crochet. All right. And then we do a front post around the inner V from below. All right. Then we're going to find that single DC. So we skip over this spot and we find that single DC and we put it in here. I don't know if you might have heard that. My little 6-month-old is watching me from his sleeper. Okay, so you can see now we've done it 3 times, and it does kind of bow out, but it will straighten up as we go. You can see that texture is starting to be created. Okay. So we're going to find that middle, so we find that chain stitch and that middle V there. We do the front post around. Then our V stitch, which is DC, chain, DC, and then a front post around here. And we find that single standing alone DC from the row below. Okay, got to do this 2 more times. So front post, double crochet, chain, double crochet, and then the front post. We find that DC standing alone. Oops. And there. Okay. And the last time of this row, we find that inner V stitch. And we do the V, chain, double crochet, and then we find that inner V for another front post. And that standing alone double crochet. We'll put it into the end here. It's always a little harder finding those chain holes. Okay, and pull through. So as you can see there, our texture is starting to be created with our V stitch. My baby thinks it's very beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and start with row 3, which is just a repetition of row 2. But I want to go ahead and do that with you because you'll really start to see the texture being created. And this row was different than last time. So we're going to start off with our chainless standing double crochet, pull it up to the height of a double crochet, wrap it around, hold that tension, put it through the hole, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. And we will, so you can see the V is starting to be pushed out here. So these are the regular V stitch from the row before. So we're going to take this regular V stitch from the row before and we're going to do a front post around that. And because it's already pushing out, it actually makes it pretty easier to grab. So we're going to wrap around there. When you're doing the post DCs, you want to make sure that this yarn doesn't get stuck up. Sometimes it does get stuck up and then it makes the stitches a little bit tall. So we do that front post DC, and then we're going to do our V-stitch in the gap that was created there. So our V-stitch is the double crochet, chain, double crochet, and then we're going to do a front post DC around this V here. Okay, and then we're going to find that line, so this line of DC will go up the entire pattern. So let's find that and go in there. Now that's a happy baby. Okay, and let's go ahead and repeat that. So we'll yarn over, front post double crochet around that V. Then we do our V stitch, chain 1, double crochet. And we do a front post around this. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to find that line of solitary DCs and stitch into that. Okay, we're going to find that next V again. So hopefully you're starting to get the hang of this. It's pretty easy to repeat once you get the first 2 rows going. So I need to tend to my baby, and I think you should be able to go ahead and finish off this stitch, and I will be back to show you the top of the square. Okay, and now hopefully you've gone ahead and finished up until, let's see how many rows we've got here. So we've got, each of these big V's is 2 rows. So we've got our starting row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I will be running through row 15 with you guys in just a second. I just wanted to stack this up with our other squares and show you how it was coming out so we could compare our size. This first stair was our V-stitch, so you can kind of see how we get a little bit of a similar thing. So this was our first square with our V-stitch that Daisy led, so I'll go ahead and link that video in the patterns. And I also did a nice, I really had a lot of fun doing this surface crochet, which if you're interested in seeing how to do that, go ahead and let me know. And then up next is our first YouTube video that I ever made was for this post stitch, and it's kind of embarrassing, so hopefully I'm going to find some time to remake it. But you can see how these are all looking very close in size, so they'll be easy when we put them together. And then this is our Jacob's Ladder, which is easy, tons of fun. If you haven't done it yet, that's one of my other videos. And this one I still have to put the edging on. And then you can see last week's square was our ocean waves, and this one does have the banner, or the outside on it. So the way I was doing the banner was just 30 single chains across, and then you put 2 in the corners, so you end up with 32 on all the sides, and that'll make it a lot easier when we go to put them together. So now I'm going to go ahead back to our waffle V-stitch or the union stitch, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing that last row. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on row 14. This is just to make it the same as our other squares. So I'm going to start off with the chainless standing double crochet, hold it over, keep that tension, wrap it around, put it through the hole, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And, oh, sorry, my cat just jumped on the table. So if you're uncomfortable doing that, you can still just do the chain 3 and then continue with the double crochets. I really do like that chainless standing double crochet. As you can see, it keeps my edges really nice here on both sides, which is definitely something nice edge you don't get when you're doing a chain for the steps to the next row. This one is a little bit bouncy just because it's not perfectly straight because we're you know, you remember how when we come up you skip that hole there, so that's why it's a little bit not perfectly straight, but it is pretty darn close, I think. Okay, so the top of our square here is going to have 31 stitches just because of the amount of repetitions we get. So what you're going to do is just chain, you're going to do 3 double crochet, then skip the hole from that chain and go into the top of the next double crochet. So we're just going to leave those out, and once you leave out those chain stitches, and if you go across the whole way, you will have 31 double crochets. Okay, so you should be able to do that. So you can see we've got our different rows. So the V stitch, it does take up kind of 2 rows to get that repetition. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and the last row is 15. So the way that we have been doing our border is to have 30 single chain, sorry, I keep saying single chain. We're going to have 30 single crochets with 2 in the corner. So you would do 30 across and then add another one. So it would be 32, but then also count that one as you go along the other side. So doing that, you're going to put, because there's 15 rows, you're going to put 2 single chain in each, or sorry, 2 single crochet in each of these rows. And then along the bottom, you're just going to go straight across 30 single crochets. And then on the other side, you'll do 2 per each row, so you'll end up with 30. And then on the top, just find a place where the tension, losing the stitch isn't gonna change it too much, and you can do an invisible decrease, and you'll get that same 32. So the invisible decrease, when you do it, maybe I'll do a video on this. You would yarn through the front loop of 2 stitches at once, like that, and then pull through and do your single crochet. I'll probably do a video on that because that is kind of a fancy thing to do. So that is everything on the V-stitch or the United, and I hope that you guys like it as much as I do. I love that it turns out to have a fun texture on both sides. I have found that it does not use as much yarn as a waffle stitch. The waffle stitch is kind of a notorious yarn eating stitch, but this V Stitch Waffle or the United Stitch doesn't really tend to take up as much yarn from what I found. So if you would like to do the crochet along with us and you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, please do so. It's just another crochet group, and the link is in the description. I will also include the link to the Moogly blog so that you can see how to do that chainless standing double crochet. I've also recently started a Reddit and a Tumblr, so if you are using Reddit and Tumblr, you can join there, and I will be posting the patterns there also. I have a Facebook page for She Stitchin' where I'll be sharing this, and if you're so inclined to have a TikTok and you're young and hip like me, obviously. Just kidding. If you do have a TikTok, I have made a TikTok, and I'm kind of showing off what I'm doing as I'm doing it on my TikTok. And it's just a fun place to do that. You can see my humor a little bit more there on my TikTok page. If you have any questions, please comment down below. And if you would like to learn how I do that surface crochet, I will just let me know, and I will do a video on that also. Okay, I hope to see you next week, and if anybody asks where I am, just tell them she's stitching.